Syra stood at the checkout line, staring at the items in her grocery cart with a kind of shame she couldn't explain. She was 39, recently divorced, and raising 2 teenagers in a fast-paced American suburb just outside of Toronto. Her cart told a story: frozen chicken nuggets, a family-sized box of donuts, 2-liter soda bottles, packets of ramen, and a tub of plant-based butter. Not a single fresh vegetable in sight. The woman ahead of her, a yoga pants-wearing mom with a toddler in tow, unloaded avocados, quinoa, spinach, and oat milk with ease. Syra tried not to compare, but her chest ached with guilt. She used to be that person. Once upon a time, in her childhood home in Birmingham, UK, her mother cooked dal from scratch, used ghee in moderation, and kept soda as a special occasion treat. But that was a lifetime ago. Her phone buzzed at IT was her daughter. "Alina, can you get McDonald's on the way home? I'm starving." Syra sighed and typed back, "We'll see." She paid for her groceries and walked out into the parking lot, a nagging headache beginning to pulse behind her temples. Lately, she'd been feeling off, tired, puffy, sometimes dizzy after meals. But she brushed it off as stress. Stress from work, from the divorce, from trying to do everything right and still falling short. That night, she heated up the nuggets and microwaved some macaroni and cheese. Her son, Zane, barely looked up from his gaming console as he ate. Alina sat scrolling through TikTok, occasionally pausing to take selfies with the family's golden retriever, Bubbles. No one talked. No one said thank you. No one noticed when Syra quietly excused herself and went to bed early with a sharp pain in her side to work the next day. Syra clutched her coffee like a lifeline. Her coworker, Naomi, glanced over with concern. "You okay?" she asked. Syra nodded. "Just tired. I think I'm getting old." Naomi raised an eyebrow. "You're not even 40. Did you sleep okay?" "Not really. I keep waking up at 3 a.m. drenched in sweat. And this pain..." Syra rubbed her upper abdomen. "It's been coming and going." Naomi frowned. "Girl, that doesn't sound normal. Go see someone." "I'll be fine," Syra said too quickly. "It's probably acid reflux. Or maybe my body's just rebelling against junk food." She laughed, but it didn't land. Later that week, Syra finally caved and booked an appointment with her GP. The doctor, a brisk, no-nonsense woman named Dr. Temple, took one look at her labs and raised an eyebrow. "Your liver enzymes are elevated. Your triglycerides are through the roof. And you're pre-diabetic," she said. Syra blinked. "But I'm not overweight." Dr. Temple nodded. "Your BMI isn't alarming, but your blood work tells another story. Fatty liver, high blood sugar, inflammation markers up. What's your diet like?" Syra hesitated. "Busy mom diet. Frozen food, takeout, energy drinks, whatever's quick." Dr. Temple tapped her pen against the clipboard. "What did your parents eat when you were growing up?" Syra smiled faintly. "Ghee lentils roti. My mum made everything from scratch." "Then your body knows better food than what you're giving it. It remembers." That phrase stuck with Syra all the way home. Your body remembers. That night, she opened her fridge and just stood there. She looked at the shelf of sauces with high fructose corn syrup, the processed meat slices, the low-fat margarine, and the carton of fruit punch that contained no actual fruit. Her kids had no clue what real food was anymore. And honestly, neither did she. The following morning, Syra dropped Alina at school and drove straight to a local bookstore. She bypassed the fiction section and headed toward health and nutrition. The titles overwhelmed her: The Keto Cure, plant-based and powerful. Intermittent fasting for women over 35. She thumbed through a few pages until one slim paperback caught her eye. The Memory of Food: How Your Body Stores Culture and Crisis. The title echoed what Dr. Temple had said. Your body remembers. Syra bought the book and drove to a cafe, ordering a black coffee instead of her usual frothy caramel latte with extra whip. She opened the book and began to read. The pages described how cultural traditions tied to food were being erased by convenience, how processed food had gradually become normal in countries like the US, UK, Canada, and Australia. The author, a nutritional anthropologist, wrote about how health issues like type 2 diabetes, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and metabolic syndrome were skyrocketing. Not because people were lazy, but because they were eating foods that pretended to be healthy while actually draining their bodies. Syra paused at one highlighted quote. We moved from ghee to donuts, from fermentation to preservatives, and from community meals to eating alone in cars. And now we wonder why we feel sick, tired, and disconnected. It hit her hard. That was her life. That night, she tried cooking. Not a massive overhaul, just a baby step. She pulled out a bag of lentils from the back of the pantry, soaked them, and FaceTimed her mother in Birmingham. Mom, how do you make that masa or dal you used to cook on rainy days? Her mom, surprised and pleased, launched into her recipe. A little ghee, garlic, turmeric, cumin seeds. Let it sizzle, then add tomatoes and lentils. Syra scribbled it all down. When the dal simmered, the smell transported her. Not just to childhood, but to safety, to warmth, to the feeling of being taken care of. Alina walked in, wrinkling her nose. What's that smell? It's dal, Syra replied. Real food. Alina shrugged and walked out. The next week, Syra started noticing things she hadn't paid attention to before. Her headaches weren't as constant. Her bloating decreased. She wasn't crashing at 3 p.m. like she used to. Even her sleep improved slightly. It wasn't a miracle, but it was a beginning. She brought homemade lentil soup to work, and Naomi blinked at her in surprise. Look at you, Chef Mud. Syra grinned. Turns out my ancestors knew a thing or two. She dug deeper. Documentaries, articles, medical journals. She found out the average Canadian adult consumed more than 50 grams of added sugar a day, double the recommended limit. In the UK, nearly 60% of the calories people consumed came from ultra-processed foods. In the US, kids were eating more sugar by age 8 than their grandparents had consumed in a lifetime. And the damage wasn't just weight gain. It was hormonal chaos, mental fog, chronic inflammation, gut issues, autoimmune flares, fertility problems. She stumbled across a podcast from an Australian doctor who said something that haunted her. Your food is either feeding disease or fighting it. There's no neutral. Syra began meal prepping on Sundays. She introduced one real food item per meal. Some changes were accepted, others not so much. Zane missed his chips. Alina still craved soda, but slowly they adapted. She made homemade oven fries with avocado oil. She switched soda for sparkling water with lemon. She packed fruit instead of snack cakes. One night, Alina surprised her. Mom, that lentil soup? It's actually kinda good. Syra smiled. Don't tell your friends. I have a reputation to protect. They laughed. Then the real test came. A late-nighter visit. It wasn't Syra. It was Zane. The clock read 1:43 a.m. when Syra jolted awake to the sound of heavy footsteps and a thud against the hallway wall. Zane? She called groggily and no answer. She got out of bed and rushed to his room. Her son, 15, lanky, always hungry, was doubled over on the floor, sweating profusely. "Mom," he moaned, gripping his stomach. "It really hurts. I feel sick." Cyrus' heart leapt. She helped him up, grabbing her keys and wallet on instinct to the emergency room. The fluorescent lights felt cold and harsh. Zane lay on a gurney with a blanket draped over him. He'd vomited twice in the car. A nurse took his vitals while asking Syra a slew of questions. "What's his diet like?" "Mostly frozen meals," Syra admitted. "Pizza, fries, some fast food. We've started changing it, but it's only been a couple of weeks." The nurse gave her a tight smile. "You'd be surprised how often we see teens like him in here. Gut inflammation, early insulin resistance, even gallbladder issues, all from processed food." Syra sat frozen. She thought kids were supposed to be resilient. The doctor came in 2 hours later, holding a clipboard and a cup of coffee. "No appendicitis," he said, "but he's showing signs of early gastritis and his fasting glucose is borderline prediabetic." Syra blinked. "Prediabetic? At 15? The doctor nodded. "It's becoming more common, especially in developed countries. Processed foods high in sugar and trans fats disrupt gut bacteria and hormonal signaling. His body is waving a red flag." Zane looked embarrassed. "So what? I'm broken now?" "No," the doctor replied gently. "But your gut and pancreas are asking for help. The food you eat is either making you stronger or slowly wearing you down." That phrase again. A warning in disguise. At home, Zane slept for most of the day. Syra sat at the kitchen table, staring into space. The sugar cereal on the counter, the toaster pastries in the cupboard. They all felt like quiet enemies. She opened her laptop and began a list titled, "The Food Lie We Believed." Low fat equals healthy, reality. Full of added sugars, energy drinks equals fuel, reality. Liquid inflammation, margarine equals better than butter, reality. Trans fat nightmare, cereal equals good breakfast, reality. Dessert in disguise, fast food equals quick and harmless, reality. Nutritional black hole. Then she wrote, "We're being fed disease in colorful packaging." She thought of her childhood in the UK, of steel tiffin boxes filled with vegetables and rice, of Saturday market days, of the way her mother used spices like medicine. She had traded that legacy for packaged meals, sugary shortcuts, and convenient poisons. The next day, Syra sat the kids down. "I need to tell you something. We're not going back to how we were eating." Zane groaned. "Does this mean no more pizza?" Syra smiled. "Not that kind of pizza. I'll make it from scratch. We'll make it together." Alina sighed. "But why?" Syra looked her daughter in the eyes. "Because I don't want you to end up in the ER at 15. Or on blood pressure meds at 25. Or with PCOS or depression made worse by sugar crashes or... Okay. Alina cut her off. "We get it." They started cooking together. Not every day, but often enough. Syra taught Alina how to make dal with turmeric and cumin. Zane learned to bake sweet potato wedges and make yogurt smoothies with honey instead of sugar. They stumbled, argued, cheated with snacks sometimes, but overall they improved. Syra kept reading. She found articles linking highly processed diets to depression, ADHD, even early Alzheimer's. In the US, the average adult consumed more ultra-processed foods than whole ones. In Australia, even school lunchboxes were packed with sugary yogurts, chips, and fruit-flavored junk. It was a global epidemic. One hidden behind happy commercials and flashy packaging. And no one was talking about it, at least not loud enough. That's when Syra had an idea. She would be the one to talk about it. Loudly, she would tell her story. Not just of what happened, but how easily it could have been prevented. Syra stared at the blinking cursor in the empty blog draft. The title at the top read, "From Ghee to Donuts, How Our Diets Are Killing Us." She paused. It sounded dramatic. But after what happened with Zane, it didn't feel like an exaggeration. She began to type, "I used to think food was just fuel, or worse, just a convenience. I believed if it was on the shelf, it must be safe. I believed what the boxes told me. Low fat, heart healthy, kid approved. But when my teenage son ended up in the ER with borderline prediabetes, I knew I'd been fed a lie." She wrote for hours. About the ER visit, about the headaches she ignored, the sluggishness, the gaslighting of wellness marketing, the toxic bliss of convenience foods. She titled one section, "The Cultural Hijack," and described how immigrant families, once deeply rooted in cooking traditions, had slowly adopted the habits of their new countries: fast food, microwave dinners, packaged snacks, and paid for it in rising rates of diabetes, fatty liver, and obesity. "We left Ghee behind and picked up donuts. And donuts were dressed like friends." She hit publish. To her shock, it went viral. Within a week, thousands had read it. Messages flooded her inbox from the US, the UK, even New Zealand. "Thank you for saying what I felt but couldn't explain. I just cleaned out my pantry after reading this. I grew up in India and now live in Canada. I've been feeding my kids granola bars and boxed mac and cheese, thinking I was doing right. Thank you for opening my eyes." One message stood out. It was from a woman in Melbourne. "My son had chronic hives for 6 months. We tried antihistamines, creams, even allergy testing. Nothing worked until we cut out processed snacks. Gone in 2 weeks. Why didn't a single doctor suggest it could be the food?" Syra felt something deep stir inside her. Not just concern, but a sense of purpose. This wasn't just about her family anymore. She started a series. Behind the Symptoms, real stories of people whose symptoms were brushed off or misdiagnosed, only to find out that diet was the hidden culprit. She interviewed a man in Chicago whose panic attacks disappeared after cutting out food dyes. A British teacher who reversed her PCOS symptoms by going low sugar and anti-inflammatory. A mom in Toronto who cured her daughter's eczema by removing ultra-processed foods and reintroducing fermented vegetables from their East African heritage. Every story echoed the same theme. We thought our suffering was random. It wasn't. Our food changed, and so did we. Syra began hosting free workshops at the local library. She brought spices, talked about turmeric's anti-inflammatory power, the gut-brain axis, and how even small steps, like switching from vegetable oil to olive oil or ditching sugary yogurts, could create massive change. Some rolled their eyes. Others took notes like their lives depended on it. One woman whispered after a talk, "I've been on antidepressants for 10 years, but I've also been eating boxed meals and vending machine snacks every day. What if I'm not just depressed? What if I'm inflamed?" Syra didn't claim to have medical answers, but she encouraged people to explore what they were never taught to question: their food. Even Naomi, her coworker, got on board. She replaced her daily sugary frappuccino with herbal tea. "I feel like I can actually think by 3 p.m., she said, astonished. "I didn't even know I had brain fog until it lifted." Zane, now back to full health, helped with editing the videos for her growing YouTube channel. Alina made graphics and even filmed TikToks showing how I went from soda to spice water. Syra looked at them one day, her children, laughing over roasted chickpeas and banana oat cookies, and almost cried. They didn't need perfect health. They just needed truth. And now they were living it. But not everyone was happy. Her inbox started getting other kinds of messages too. Syra leaned back in her chair, staring at the screen. The latest article she'd written, "The Hidden Dangers of Your Favorite Healthy Snacks," was gaining traction. But so was the backlash. One email was particularly harsh. "This is nonsense. Food isn't the cause of everything. You're just spreading fear-mongering. I've eaten fast food my entire life, and I'm fine." Another comment from a reader was worse. "You're taking away the only joy people have left. People don't have time to cook. Stop blaming everything on food. Life is hard enough without you telling people their comfort food is making them sick." Syra's stomach tightened as she read these words. She had expected some resistance. People were emotionally connected to their food choices. But it stung nonetheless. Her phone buzzed. Naomi's name flashed across the screen. "Hey," Syra answered. "What's up? I saw the comments on your last post. Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Just a little upset, I guess," Syra sighed. Naomi paused. "Look, I know it's hard, but you're making a difference. There are always going to be people who don't want to hear it. But your message is right." Syra knew Naomi was right. The truth often didn't sit well with people, especially when it meant confronting decades of bad habits and food culture. Still, the negativity weighed on her. She felt like she was stepping on sacred ground, and people weren't ready to hear that the foods they loved could be silently killing them. But then something changed. It was one of the most unexpected moments of her journey. A woman named Jade, a registered nurse, reached out to her on Instagram. Jade was an immigrant from the Philippines, now living in Calgary, Canada. She wrote, "Syra, I read your story and wanted to thank you. I've been a nurse for 20 years, and I've seen so many patients with symptoms that mirror what you described. But we were never taught to look at food as the problem. I started making changes, and my blood pressure is down. My arthritis pain is gone. My mood has improved. I wanted to let you know that I've been passing your article along to everyone I can. I hope you don't let the negativity stop you." Jade's words felt like a lifeline. Syra hadn't even realized how far her message had spread. How many people were already feeling the same thing? It was clear now. The movement wasn't just about her family or her story. It was about a much bigger shift in how people viewed food. A week later, Syra received an invitation to speak at a health conference in Sydney. The organizers had read her articles and wanted her to discuss the role of diet in chronic disease prevention. Syra almost laughed when she read the email. From the woman who once grabbed fast food in a frenzy to the woman now being invited to speak on the very food that had caused her to spiral, life had a way of coming full circle. She accepted the invitation. At the conference, Syra took the stage nervously but with resolve. The auditorium was packed with doctors, nutritionists, and wellness influencers. She spoke about her family's journey, how they'd gone from ghee to donuts, and how their health was slowly but steadily improving. She didn't just talk about the science. She shared the heart of the matter. She shared the personal, emotional toll of feeling helpless as a mother, watching her children and herself suffer, only to find a solution in something as simple as cooking at home, eating real food, and cutting out the processed junk. The crowd was silent. Then, after she finished, people began to approach her. "I've been struggling with high blood pressure for years," one doctor said. "I thought it was just genetics. But now I see I've been ignoring the root cause." A nutritionist from Toronto asked, "Where can I get your resources? This is what my patients need to hear." Even a food industry representative asked if she'd be willing to collaborate on a healthier, Non-processed snack line. Cyrus' heart swelled. This was it. The breakthrough. People weren't just listening. They were beginning to understand. Back home, Zane and Alina watched Cyrus' speech online, a proud look on both their faces. "You did it, Mom," Zane said, grinning. "You actually made people get it." Cyrus smiled and sat down next to him. "I didn't do it alone," she said softly. "I had help from people who were brave enough to listen. People like you." The journey wasn't over. There were still challenges. Still days where she wanted to throw her hands up and give in to the convenience of a drive-through. But now the fight didn't feel lonely. Felt like a movement. And Syra was at the forefront, not just for her family, but for thousands of others who were just beginning to understand what had been hidden in plain sight all along. She looked at the list of people she was helping. Parents, teens,
Professionals.
grandparents, all of them coming to terms with the hard truth that food could either feed their future or destroy it. And she had one message for them. Don't wait until the symptoms show up. Don't wait until the damage is done. The story wasn't just hers anymore. It was everyone's. And with that, Syra felt the weight of the world on her shoulders, but also a renewed sense of purpose.